Jon Moxley just torched Paul Heyman and The Vision in the most personal, most vicious promo of his career, and he did it after voluntarily giving up the AEW World Championship in a moment that has the entire wrestling industry questioning everything they thought they knew about loyalty, principles, and what it means to be a champion. Moxley didn't just relinquish a title, he declared war on the philosophy that's dominated WWE for the past 3 years, and his message to Paul Heyman wasn't subtle. Your corporate vision is poison, and I'm coming to prove it. This wasn't a worked shoot. This wasn't carefully scripted promo material approved by Tony Khan. This was Jon Moxley going completely off the leash and saying things that have both WWE and AEW executives in panic mode about potential legal implications, contract tampering accusations, and a brewing war between promotions that could reshape professional wrestling. Before we break down every explosive word Moxley said and decode what this means for the future of wrestling, answer this. Did you ever think you'd see Jon Moxley voluntarily give up a world championship to make a point? Comment yes or no because this might be the most shocking moment in AEW history. Let's set the stage because the context makes Moxley's message even more devastating. AEW Dynamite opened last night with Jon Moxley scheduled to cut a promo about his upcoming title defense. Standard championship segment. Nothing unusual announced. Moxley came out with the AEW World Championship. But something was immediately different about his energy. He wasn't fired up. He wasn't aggressive. He looked tired, disappointed, like a man who'd reached a conclusion about something important and was about to make a decision that would change everything. Moxley stood in the center of that ring, championship over his shoulder, and the first words out of his mouth were, "I can't do this anymore." The crowd went silent, everyone immediately sensing this wasn't following any script they'd been told about. "I've been the AEW World Champion 4 times now," Moxley continued. "I've defended this title against everyone they've put in front of me. I've bled for this company, sacrificed my body, given everything to make AEW matter in a world where WWE tries to convince everyone they're the only game that counts." He paused, looking at the championship with genuine sadness. "But I've been watching what's happening across the wrestling landscape, and I realize something. We're losing, not in ratings or ticket sales, but in the battle for what wrestling is supposed to be." Quick question, what number AEW World Champion is Jon Moxley? Drop your answer and let's see who knows their AEW history. That's when Moxley started going after the Vision, and holy hell did he come with receipts. Paul Heyman and Triple H created this thing they called the Vision. Moxley's voice was dripping with contempt. This philosophy that wrestling should be. But let me tell you what the Vision really is. Long-term storytelling. It's a system designed to make wrestlers grateful for whatever scraps they're given. And everyone just accepted telling performers like it was gospel handed down from on high. Trust the process while the same people stay on top forever, and the new generation gets conditioned to accept mediocrity as success. The crowd was hanging on every word, many nodding in agreement, sensing that Moxley was articulating frustrations that go beyond AEW versus WWE and speak to something fundamental about the wrestling business. The Vision tells wrestlers that if they just follow the rules, if they just do what they're told, if they just comply with creative and don't rock the boat, eventually they'll get their moment. Moxley continued, his intensity building. And you know what? That's a lie. It's a carrot on a stick designed to keep people in line, while a select few maintain their positions at the top. He pointed toward the hard camera, clearly directing his words at WWE. "I've been watching WWE talent who bought into the Vision completely. Gave up creative control, gave up their independence, gave up everything that made them special as performers. And what did they get in return? 5-minute matches on Main Event and tweets from Triple H saying, 'We value you.'" Then Moxley addressed Paul Heyman specifically. Comment and this is where things got nuclear. Is Moxley speaking truth? I know you're listening. Or is he being bitter? I know you think you're some genius who revolutionized wrestling this is the by attaching yourself dividing to the wrestling world and taking credit for their success. But let me explain something you've never understood. You don't create stars. You attach yourself to them like a parasite. The disrespect of that statement cannot be overstated. Paul Heyman is considered one of the greatest minds in wrestling history, and Moxley just called him a parasite on live television. You did it with Brock. You did it with CM Punk. You did it with Roman. You found guys who were already special and convinced everyone that your advocacy was what made them successful. But here's the reality. Every single one of those men would have been just as successful without you. The only person whose career depended on that relationship was yours. Moxley was on fire now, pacing the ring like a caged animal. And now you're trying to do it with an entire generation. The vision is just Paul Heyman's parasite act scaled up to company size. Convince everyone they need you and your system to succeed, when the truth is, your system is what's holding them back. The crowd was chanting OX, Mox, OX. But Moxley held up his hand for silence. He wasn't done, not even close. So here's what I'm gonna do, Moxley said, removing the AEW World Championship from his shoulder. I'm relinquishing this title, right here, right now. Not because I don't value crowd was but audible, because holding it means TV I'm part of the same system. Moxley was actually doing it. I'm at the top giving up the championship voluntarily in the middle of a someone else about wrestling's power structures. And I refuse to be part of a hierarchy that keeps talented wrestlers waiting for permission to be AEW World Championship. Bonus points if you remember the event. He laid the championship in the center of the ring. Tony Khan didn't ask me to do this. This isn't a work. This isn't an angle. This is me saying that I'm more valuable to wrestling as someone fighting against the systems that keep talent down than I am, as another champion on another throne telling everyone below me to wait their turn. Then came the line that has everyone talking, the statement that's going to define this entire situation. Paul Heyman, Triple H, and everyone pushing the vision, I only got one thing to say to you, your corporate wrestling utopia where everyone follows the rules and waits patiently for their moment? I'm going to burn it down. And I'm not doing it with titles or accolades or by playing your game. I'm doing it by showing every wrestler in every company that they don't need your permission to be great. Moxley dropped the microphone on top of the championship and walked out of the ring to absolute chaos in the arena. Tony Khan immediately came out looking genuinely confused and upset, trying to talk to Moxley as he walked up the ramp. Moxley ignored him completely and walked straight through the curtain. Is John Moxley the most EW went to an emergency commercial break while everyone backstage tried to figure out what the hell just happened? Give me your honest how to proceed with a show that had just lost its world pandemonium in the most unexpected way possible. Tony Khan came back out after the commercial looking like he'd aged 5 years in 3 minutes. He announced that there would be a tournament to crown a new AEW World Champion. But his voice was shaky, his composure completely shot. The AEW locker room was reportedly in shock. Some wrestlers supported Moxley's stance and were inspired by his willingness to sacrifice his position to make a point. Others thought he was being selfish and dramatic, that he could have made the same statement without throwing the entire company into chaos. Kenny Omega tweeted during the show, Mox just did something I don't fully understand yet, but I respect the hell out of the conviction it took to do it. Chris Jericho was less supportive. There's a way to make statements without screwing over your coworkers and the company that pays you. This ain't it. But the real fallout is happening at WWE. And this is where things get legally complicated. Within an hour of Moxley's promo, WWE Legal reportedly contacted AEW Legal about what they're calling defamatory statements about WWE employees and business practices. Paul Heyman hasn't responded publicly, but sources close to him say he's furious and considering a personal defamation lawsuit against both Moxley and AEW for allowing the statements to air. Triple H released a statement through WWE Corporate that's dripping with passive-aggressive dismissal. Whatever he's doing, everyone's entitled to their opinion about the vision, implying Moxley's grand statement was meaningless noise that WWE's talent development and creative direction have produced the strongest roster in wrestling history. Is WWE genuinely upset? We wish John well, or are they loving the attention this is bringing to the vision? Drop your analysis. The wrestling community is fractured over this. Social media has become a war zone between people who think Moxley is a hero standing up to corporate wrestling and people who think he's a bitter ex-WWE guy who can't get over the fact that WWE is more successful than AEW. The Moxley is right camp argues that he's articulating frustrations felt by wrestlers across multiple companies who feel trapped in systems that prioritize compliance over creativity. They point to countless examples of talented wrestlers who've been held back by the vision and its emphasis on patience and following the prescribed path. The Moxley is wrong camp argues that the vision has objectively produced better wrestling content than the chaotic, anything-goes approach that Moxley seems to be advocating for. They point to WWE's financial success, their talent development, wrestling journalists are having an absolute field day with the story. Generally have more job security than those in AEW. The most significant moment in both sides have valid points, which is what makes this so fascinating and divisive. Wade Keller said it's either a brilliant work that's going to pay off huge or the most self-indulgent career move since CM Punk's podcast. The question everyone is asking, what's Moxley's next move? He can't wrestle for WWE because of his AEW contract. He's apparently not wrestling for AEW in a championship capacity anymore. So what's the plan? Some are speculating Moxley is about to show up in every independent promotion in America, working for free or cheap just to prove his point about not needing the corporate wrestling system. Others think this is all building to Moxley eventually returning to WWE specifically to fight the Vision from within in some meta-storyline that blurs reality and fiction even more than this already has. Question for the comments. Where do you think Jon Moxley wrestles next, and what company benefits most from his current position? Give me your predictions. There's also a contingent of people who think this is all a massive work between WWE and AEW, that Tony Khan and Triple H secretly coordinated this to generate buzz for both companies. The evidence? Moxley's promo was too perfectly crafted, hitting all the talking points that internet fans have been discussing for months. It gave WWE free publicity while making AEW look Jon Moxley and just became the most talked about wrestler in the industry without holding a single championship. I understand why people are floating. He proved his own point by demonstrating that the line between work and shoot is so blurred that nothing feels definitively real whether you agree with it or not, is now under more scrutiny than ever before. Every WWE creative decision will be analyzed through the lens of Moxley's criticism. Every young wrestler who gets held back will be seen as evidence that Moxley was right. Every success story will be used as evidence that the Vision works. Paul Heyman's legacy is being questioned in ways it hasn't been before. Is he truly a genius who elevated everyone he worked with? Or is Moxley right that Heyman simply attached himself to naturally talented performers and took credit for their inevitable success? These aren't questions with easy answers, which is exactly why this story is so compelling. Rate Moxley's promo. On a scale of 1 to 10, how effective was his message? Did he change your perspective on anything? The ripple effects of this are going to be felt for years. Other wrestlers are going to be emboldened to speak up about creative frustrations. Promotions are going to have to address the philosophical questions Moxley raised about hierarchy and opportunity. Fans are going to demand more transparency. Is that he gave up about the AEW Wrestling Championship to make a statement about Paul Heyman. Jon Moxley might have just started a revolution, created more conversation, or he might have just committed a really dramatic form than anything else that's happened in 2025. Time will tell whether you think Moxley is a visionary or a fool. You can't deny he's got everyone talking. And in an industry where attention equals value, maybe that's the smartest move he could have made. The response from WWE talent has been interesting. Most have stayed silent, probably on orders from management. But a few have spoken up in ways that suggest Moxley's message resonated. One WWE wrestler, who requested anonymity, told a wrestling news site, "A lot of us feel exactly what Mox said. We've been told to trust the process for years, and meanwhile we watch the same people stay on top while we get 5-minute matches and told to be grateful. Maybe he's right that the system is designed to keep us in our place." That kind of sentiment, spreading through WWE's locker room, is exactly what management fears. Moxley didn't just criticize the Vision, he potentially planted seeds of discontent that could grow into serious morale problems. Final question, and this is the big one. Did Jon Moxley just become the most important wrestler in the industry by giving up his championship, or did he throw away his position for nothing? Comment your verdict. What happens next is anyone's guess. Does Moxley return to AEW eventually? Does he work indies exclusively? Does WWE make him an offer so crazy he can't refuse, specifically to undermine his anti-corporate message? Subscribe to SUPLEX RING SAGA. The only thing certain is that Jon Moxley's message to Paul Heyman and the Vision will be studied, Moxley's next move, debated, WWE's response, as long as people AEW's recovery from losing their champion, whether history remembers him as a revolutionary who challenged the system or a bitter Jon Moxley relinquished the AEW World Championship entirely and declared war on Paul Heyman's Share this video with everyone moments in modern wrestling. The corporate structure that's dominated WWE for 3 years just got challenged in the most public way possible. And the person who challenged it sacrificed everything to make his point. That's not entertainment, That's conviction. Whether that conviction is admirable or foolish is up to you to decide. The Suplex Ring Saga